Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 26 in the 68 Mustang fastback build known as Fangled. In the last video I left off with working on the header and the steering, and I think I have all that where I need it and where I want it, and I'm going to move on. Now I still have to test fit the passenger side header, which I haven't done yet, but I'm going to show you the status right now of where we're at with the car. So as I showed you in the last video, I worked on making the steering work, getting it to fit clearance around the header, as you can see up here, and I had to dent the header itself. I also had to cut the header to angle it slightly in this section right here so that I could get it to move away from the steering. Now all this is an effort to make sure we can use the shift linkage, which is part of the situation we're dealing with, and in that last video, I also talked about this transmission mount that I made, and I'm going to be doing some modifications to that. I made some footnotes on that video. I put this pipe all the way through here, and I really didn't want to do that. The intent was to keep this in alignment, but the reality is that pipe is really just meant to keep the what I call the biscuits, the bushings, in place to each other. So this pipe will be further up in, and only the bolt will come through here. So I'm going to weld this hole down, make it smaller, and then re-drill it, and only the bolt's going to come through. What I need to do, besides checking the header to see if it's going to clear, which I'm pretty confident, I say I'm pretty confident, that it will clear. I have not had it on the engine while the engine is in the car. So I'm going to do a couple different things. If I can get to the header, pulling the engine back out and getting that in place, I'll do that. But what I need to work on is the tranny tunnel. So if you look over here, I have this. This is out of the 66 Mustang Coupe that I use as a donor for the Brooklyn Pony car. When I needed some parts and pieces and measurements, I used up that mangled body that I had, and I saved this tranny tunnel only because a friend of mine asked me to. I really had no intention of saving this. As you can see, it's been sitting outside collecting dirt and critters, but now that I have it, I realize I can use it as a template. I don't need to cut this up. I don't need to put it in the car. I can use it as a reference. So what I want to do is kind of use this and kind of use the opening that I created inside the car and see if I can't come up with something that makes sense. I've seen other people make these and they end up with basically a forward section, a mid section, and then a tapered rear section. And I may be able to use, or I may be able to have a friend who works for a sheet metal company make this for me. And what I think I'll do is use some cardboard as a template. So you can follow this, they've got this curve here. I'm going to show you all that in just a minute. I have those other pieces that I cut out of the car, and I'm going to see if I can't come up with something that'll work. Now I always try to stress safety whenever I work on something, so I keep these stands underneath the car anytime that I'm doing regular work underneath it. There's no sense in having the possibility of a failure and a 3,000-pound car falling on you. So keep that in mind whenever you're working on stuff to try to keep things as safe as you can. So once I get the car down, I start removing the steering column, which is just temporarily in place anyway, and I take the dash back out, and I realized the little bolts that go up through the dash into the brake pedal mount were fighting me here. So I had to take the bolt loose. And these are really almost like a piece of all thread. So it's got threading on both sides. So I put that back in, get the dash out of the way, and start looking at what's going to be a problem or a conflict with this transmission. So that center rib is pretty tall. And I think I need to go ahead and just modify that to make it fit better. So as you can see, we've got some issue. Right now there's a gap on either side that of course is going to increase as you move forward. Now there is some ribbing up here on top of this case, and I may cut some of that off just in this top section to help it come down some. On the side we have ears, and I believe there's also these squared off openings here, which is probably for assembly. So like when they carried this around, they would hook something on here, you know, for a crane to support it. I don't know, those aren't really going to be in the way by the looks of it, so I'll probably leave those alone. But this rib right here pushes it up even more. So if I set this on and just try to figure out an angle, it's hitting basically right there on that rib right here. And there may be some value to leaving that the way it is, but I think I can take some of that off and it's not going to matter much. Now the other part is this forward section. So this would have been underneath of this piece as part of the firewall. So this radius actually looks okay. The shape of it matches pretty well moving forward. The hard part's going to be up here, where this becomes a kind of a transition kink in the way that's shaped. So whether I use that spare tunnel that I have as a template, or I just use this and follow this curve the same way with this, I could still make this in a couple of pieces. I'm just going to have to add spacing down below. So right now this is about 2 1/4 inches on this side. If I rotate this over a little, because I did not do a precise cut like side to side, so these numbers are going to be varied. So like there's about 1 inch. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. Also, these have this indent right here. I'm not exactly sure what that was for, but I'm not going to reuse that or make that indent. And then the other part of that is we're not going to need this hole. At least I don't see why we would need it. I can still make this similar in shape, but we're going to have that shifter somewhere in this location. So this could actually round up a little bit. It's pretty square right here on top. So I'm going to play with this a little. Like I said, probably grind some of this off or cut some of it off. You have to be careful with aluminum, because when you use you can't use like a grinding stone. Obviously a stone will fill up with lead or the material and cause it to explode. So I may just take the cutoff wheel and just take some of this angle off and then some of this angle off, just to bring it down slightly. I decided to use the 4.5 inch cutoff wheel on the grinder, and I'm not digging into the case. I'm just removing some of the height of that center rib, and then I'll work on the back section a little bit as well. Just trying to make a little more clearance. I'm always stressing being careful when you do something like this in particular. Don't get in a hurry. Don't make a dangerous groove or cut or something that may cause a problem later. So I continue to knock down that rib just to get it started, basically. I'll come back later on and use a sanding disc to smooth up the rest of it. But for now, I just wanted to get the center section started, working it down. I then take that piece that I have of the tunnel, set it up in place, and as I start looking at it, I realize, oh, wait a minute, I still have that brace in the center that I should have removed. So I go back to the grinder, and I could have done different things here. I could have used a drill bit, but I felt like I can use this grinder and just grind off the top of the welds. And you'll see later on, whenever they put this together, they not only used these spot weld locations, but they also added welds on the flange. So I'm using my separation tool here that I commonly use and just popping these welds loose. But down towards the what would be the top area of the tunnel, there are welds. They did a long weld there, and I'm not sure why they did that. Usually the spot welds are fine. So I take the grinder, knock off those welds, and then start working the rest of this loose. I don't show the part where I smashed my thumb. I didn't feel like you needed to see that. That was not pretty, and it was very painful to smash it. But I went back and worked this piece loose and used the body separator tool there to break some welds at the backside. And it just took some wiggling of this, you know. When you do this, of course, the welds will fail. And get that out of the way. And then I take the hammer and just knock down some of these high spots. You know, you don't want any sharp metals, you know, poking you in the finger or something like that later on. So then I sanded it smooth just to help with that. So I should have probably removed this before I started. It really wouldn't have changed much, but you can see that's probably overall maybe 3/4 of an inch on that end. So I cut that out and I put the piece back up inside the car. Right now, this gap isn't that big, maybe an inch, probably on either side, about an inch or so. But what I did is I took the rib piece that I cut off of the transmission housing, and it is now sitting sideways here to support this. So this is close to where it's going to end up. Also, I set that piece in, and again it's a little high, but it's going to be short because we already know this has been cut off, and I had to cut this back in order to get the transmission in the first place. That's why I have these tabs right here, because that was touching way down here. Now I still have this piece here which was laying across, and I'm going to cut that off. It's going to be more in line with this angle, and I feel like I've got a good idea as to what I'm going to do. I do have access, or a friend who does sheet metal work, and I'm going to take these pieces and over to his shop. They got a business here locally, and I'm going to see if we can't kind of replicate this without this dip in it, and maybe without some of these transitions that aren't going to be overly necessary. But what I want to do is trim off like this piece, and I may trim these off just a little more, but I also want to make a cardboard template of that part of the firewall. The idea is if we can make this piece and make it big, oversized, then I can take that piece of cardboard and use it as a guide to cut the front section. So I'm going to keep experimenting a little bit with cutting and making templates, but we'll see what I can come up with. Back to the grinder, cut off that flange as I talked about, and I may be doing some more modifications later. Right now I'm just trying to get rid of some of the metal that's in the way, and somebody has suggested that I should cut the tunnel slightly taller, and I still may do that, but for now I just wanted to get started on getting a shape that I needed. Now whenever I'm doing this, I'm knocking down this little bit of that ridge right there. On the side here, I noticed that those lugs are lumpy, and not that it's going to make much difference, but I just want to kind of eliminate as much excess material as I can. I'm not taking them the whole way off. Sanding down that center rib, or smoothing it out a little bit more, and then checking with the tunnel piece again. I use that little piece of cut off material that I use, or cut off from the rib, to kind of set it up off of the transmission case. Once I get a good look at this, I get the other piece and set it in place, and I know that it's going to be short, so I start making my cardboard template. So this would be your version of cardboard aided drawing, I guess. So CAD, but I make some cuts, I make some marks, and then I make some cuts, and then I roll the cardboard so that it gets into the shape that I want it to be, because the tunnel, it's a curve, but in the back section it's kind of flat and squared off where the shifter is, but as it goes up into the firewall, it becomes more of a big curve. So test fitting these pieces, or this piece, and making cuts as necessary. I try to get it to fit inside of the tunnel opening, and it just takes time. Whenever you're doing these sort of things, you make your marks, trace it out, and then I'll cut some more material off and make sure that it's going to get closer and closer and closer. Cut off the excess, go back to fitting that back into place, and I get really close here. I know that there's a little more excess that I have to cut off, but you can see the process. I know it's boring, but you understand what I'm doing in making this fit as close as it can, and this will pay off later on whenever we get to making the actual tunnel piece. So there's what I have come up with. I made this extension, and when I had it in the car, I drew this line so that I could replicate that location. So it just kind of shows how much I'm going to add to the front edge of this. And also, ideally, if I can, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make this in one piece. It may end up being two pieces and with a split line somewhere. So this back section is going to be relatively easy. We know that this, I could probably add maybe a 1/2 inch to that length and add maybe 2 inches up here, which would relate also to this piece. And then on this side, I may make this like 3 inches longer, even though this now matches the shape of the firewall, and this section over here matches the shape on the driver's side. So I need to add length here, here, and here, and see what we can come up with. I haven't been to this shop before. It's a professional shop. It's a real business. See what they can do, or show me what they have the capabilities of. Like I said, this back section, this doesn't really matter much. It's more about where this shape is, because this flat section here, that was for this shifter, and with the low car shifter, it's just going to mount on top. I may have to make something to hold it, but it won't be this. So I'm going to see what I can, what else I can get done. I may go ahead and pull that engine and reset the other header. I've gotten pretty good at putting this header on and taking it back off. I've got a U-joint there and a swivel extension, and so I'm able to get up in there pretty easily. Take out the 2 bolts that are holding it in, because I didn't have all the bolts in anyway, and get that out of the way. Lower the car back down as I have done in the past. Get the arms out of the way from the lift, and then get it up over the plate. That lift has a cable on the floor. It goes underneath, so you have to have that plate down there. Get everything lined up with the hoist, because my hoist does not move. It's on a fixed location, so I have to move the car underneath it. And those side posts you see are actually supports to support the trusses. So I kind of did a structural design to make everything stay in place and be solid. You don't want to pull your roof down by pulling out an engine. So get this up and loose, and I do have that adjusting leveler on there as well, and that helps a lot. So get that up and push the car out of the way, and then we're going to move on to trying to test fit the header. Well, I was hoping, really hoping, that I wouldn't have any trouble with this header. So when this was in the car and I tried to put it in, I tried to go up through, and it just wouldn't clear. So it was hitting the starter. You know, the frame rail is pretty close, and it just, this would not get past the starter. So I thought, you know, I'll bolt it onto the block and set it down in as an assembly. I haven't tried that yet. A couple reasons. One, this header is hitting the transmission lines. So these lines run, and these are the factory lines, and I know people put on different transmission lines. But as it is, and I can probably get away with it, there's a bracket behind here that holds the transmission lines in place, I can take that bracket off. I can take those lines and just bend them up a little bit. They're not going to hurt anything. But problem number 2, and maybe problem number 3. This is the transmission or the engine mount that comes with the kit. And oddly enough, that dead ends into that pipe. Now, I will say the header is sticking out just a little. There's a gap, a small gap behind this top flange. So this, even if it went inboard a little, you're not going to get around that. Now, I've had suggestions, I've shown this on Facebook, and people have said, well, just put a shorter bolt in, or just do this or just do that. Here's the problem. This, to put this in, has to be bolted to the engine. It can't go in after. Otherwise, I wouldn't have this problem. You could just put the, put the engine in, put the bolt in, put the header up, fine. That's not going to happen. Now, maybe the idea is you pull the starter off and put the header on and then work the starter back in. I haven't tried that yet. I'm kind of going through the process. But either way, this bolt running straight into the pipe, you have to get a nut on there. You have to get something to hold this in place. And the bolt would have to go this direction. You can't put it this direction. So I'm fighting with this. I don't want to, as I did on the other side. I made cuts, I modified the pipes, I moved them. This only gets worse. So if I cut this pipe up here somewhere and I cut it down below somewhere, this would have to go in and almost touch the oil pan for this pipe or this bolt to go in. I don't know. It's frustrating. It really is frustrating. These headers are, my understanding, a copy of Doug's, or Doug's Headers makes them or something. And I don't know what people are using these on. I'm not sure where I need to go with this. Either we need to come up with maybe some shorty headers or something completely different to make this work. But I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to ideas. I have sent pictures to TCI to figure out what's going on here, because something has to give. And I'm frustrated. I'm not sure at what point this makes any sense, doing this. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll try pulling the starter off, setting the engine down in, put the header on, try to get the starter on, see if I can get it to come through, because, and here's the other thing. This may be the part 3 that I was talking about. This alignment right here, if you look, this is angled. So these bolt holes are all lined up. It's square this way. This comes forward, and I feel like it's going to hit the mount, the frame rail, the cross member piece, because this planes out further ahead than this face right here. So if I were to take, let me grab a piece of angle iron. Let's just take the bolt out. Straight piece of angle iron. Come in like that. This is flush on the mount. Flush on this face. So like if you took this and indexed it and made it feel flat, for this to have that feeling, 0 comes back, and I'm pushing that up against it. It's hitting the header. It's hitting the header. Let's see if we can replicate that on the car. So to give you some perspective, I measured from the bolt the bottom edge of the bolt straight down, and it's 7 inches. I don't know if I can get this angled right. Then I'm coming off the bottom of the bolt, just like I said. I'm going to turn this so you can maybe see it. I don't know if the measurement will show up. If I go square, this is 6 inches. 6 inches. I'm going to put my finger on there. Actually 6 1/4 inches. 6 1/4. How does that make sense? This is square. Can't change this. I'm going to go to the bottom of the bolt, like I just said. Six 1/4 inches. So, just as a reference, here's the bottom of the header. I'm going to come up. Hopefully I can show this. How can I hold this so you can see it? So, bottom of the header. Go up to the bolt. Put my thumb right on it. That's 6 5/8. Definitely over 6 1/2. If it did clear, it's going to be by not much. But I don't think it's going to. I think even with that curve, the curve's going to help. Yeah, it would just clear. It might just clear, but I don't know. I'll play around with it. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the header off, pull the starter, try to put this, I'm going to have to pull the tranny lines to get them out of the way, at least for now, and then see if I can't set it back in there. Okay, I have removed the starter, set the engine back in, and I'm going to try to make the header fit. So I'm going to put it in from a couple different directions or a couple different angles so you can see. And with the starter removed, this will just fit through that opening. Now, I'm trying. Okay. That is close, but definitely not going to work. Let me show you from another angle. Now from the side, I'm going to try to get this up on the bolts, or where the bolts are supposed to be. Why? Why? How is that good? I can't even bring this down because it hits against the lower control arm. Even if I get it close to lining up on one hole, it's like, I don't know. Because I disconnected the line bracket here on the tranny line too. Well, I don't know what else I can do. So I was trying to show all these different angles, you know, bringing it in from the front, showing it from the side and the back. And I thought, is there something I can do? Can I move it around at all to get bolts to line up in any of the holes? And I was pushing it around and realized I was also fighting that. So it's making contact with the frame rail while it's making contact with the control arm, and there's really not much I can do. I know that there's concern with heat. Obviously, you don't want to get too much heat around the starter and that sort of thing, but you also don't want heat or contact, let's say, even with this control arm, and melt out these bushings or anything like that. So I think these headers are not gonna work, at least not the way they're designed, and that's not good. So I'm gonna let that sit for the moment. I've sent Sal some pictures and I'm waiting on some feedback from him. So I'm not going to do anything else with that part of the car. And also I want to point out that I am working on the transmission tunnel, as I mentioned. I went to a friend's business today, a place that he works, where they sell, you know, big machines and machines that can bend metal and roll metal and different things. And I went to see him with my pieces that I had cut out. And he can't make the metal or bend it yet. He has to he's going to make a CAD program and going to work on making that. It'll have to be in another future video. So I'm going to have to hold off on the transmission tunnel. But I do need to address this mount for the transmission, as I talked about. When I originally did this, I made a mistake. I admit it. I had made this so this pipe would fit through both of these, and I don't need that. I talked about it some in the last video. So what I'm going to do is weld this hole, maybe fully shut, I don't know yet, and re-drill just for the bolt to come through, and then this will sit on the interior face of that. It's not going to come through the hole. So I have to remedy that, but that's okay. I'm going to make that happen. A nice round hole, isn't it? That'll do. Let it cool off and then I'll work on it some more and smooth this up. Okay, let that cool off. I'll get everything mounted back up, do an alignment check, and then re-drill this hole or open it up with a rotary file so I can get the bolt in there. Now this is the reason why I did not weld the hole completely shut. I would not be able to see where the bolt was coming through, and I could not drill it from the top. So by doing it the way I did, I was able to use the rotary file, or the burr, as some people call it, to open up the hole. I do multiple test fits, setting the bolt in and looking at where it's coming to meet the hole. And then I continue to remove material until I get it centered into that hole once again. Once I'm satisfied with where I see it's going to come through, I decide to use the cordless drill and use a step drill to finish it off and make sure it's nice and round all the way up. I do this, and then I do a test fit of the bolt, and it worked out really well. Dropped straight through the center like I wanted it, so I'm happy with that. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm also being cautious here. I put the rubber biscuit back up on top, but I wanted to blow out all of the drill debris or anything. Didn't want to have anything interfering with that. And I realized at this point that the bolt is going to be short, but I'll address that later. So now that is taken care of. I just need to get a longer bolt and put in there, and that'd be simple enough. Well, this video kind of went off the rails. You know, I wanted to do the transmission tunnel, and I was working towards that. So I had made my cardboard template, and I had separated pieces and parts to make everything fit better. But I took the parts to my buddy's business, where they have this massive machinery and equipment, and he started looking it over, and he said, yeah, we can do this, but he needed to put it into a CAD program, and it takes time to do that sort of stuff. So he has to design the program, and that's just not going to happen. I don't have enough time to do that and make this video. So he's in the middle of working on that right now, and I'll make a video on that later on, and you'll be able to see what happens and how it works. Also, I was working on the headers. Now, you already know I did a bunch of work on the driver's side header and all the cutting and fitting that I had to do to make that work. And, you know, it's frustrating. I've talked with Sal at TCI, and, you know, I've sent him pictures of the driver's side header and what I had to do to it. And shout out to him. He is redesigning that header. And he said that he's going to take some of the ideas that I've demonstrated, or some of the problems that I've demonstrated, and he's going to redesign the header. Now, I had not even tried to put on the passenger side header, so we didn't have any conversation about that one. However, I sent him pictures of what I saw when I tried to mount the header onto the block and had interference with the engine mount and that sort of thing. Now, to be fair, had I removed the starter and put the header up inside, I could bypass some of the problems, like the bolt that could go forward and not come from the front. So that's an easy fix overall. But when I started putting all that together, and the header was now hitting the suspension, the lower control arm, and it was interfering with the frame rail, and it couldn't even get the bolts in it, there's not much else you can do. I could have started cutting on that header as well, but I decided I'm not going to do that. I sent pictures to Sal, and he actually called me up while I was making these videos. He called me up and he said, hey, do me a favor, throw those headers away. He said he's going to redesign the whole setup. So I can't say enough about Sal and how he has interacted with me and is willing to take steps to improve products that they sell. So these headers, my understanding, were built by somebody else. They weren't actually built by TCI. They were part of the package, or offered as part of the package. But Sal did not know that there was all these fitting conflicts, or at least nobody had come forward to him and say, hey, we got some issues here. So he said whatever he has in the inventory at TCI, they're going to cut them up and throw them away. That's how frustrated he is, because he wants to put out the best product he can, and I appreciate that so much. So what's going to happen? Sal is making new headers, and he's going to get a car like this. Out in California, he's got access to a Mustang with a Coyote engine in it, similar or same setup. He's going to make headers to fit and test them on that car. And then he's going to send them to me. After he is satisfied with them fitting that car, he's going to send them to me, and I'm going to see how they fit this car. And if I can't find any flaws with them, or if I'm satisfied with how they fit, I'm going to send those headers back to Sal, and he's going to start manufacturing them. That is awesome. I can't give him enough credit when a business is willing to step up and change and improve their designs to help out the end user. That's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be in a future video. But that's all I'm going to be able to do in this video for today. So I want to thank everybody for being here. If you would, leave a comment and a thumbs up. Let YouTube know that you like to watch these videos. And also I want to thank my patrons who continue to support me. They keep me going. They keep me motivated. If you're interested in becoming a patron, there's a link in the description box down below, along with any other links of tools or equipment that I talk about. But that'll be it for this video. So until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.